She sat in the interview room, smiling and trying to stay calm, but something felt strange from the very beginning. The manager looked at her with suspicion and asked, "Why did you lie on your resume?" She froze. She had never lied. She had worked hard for her degree. Her experience was real, and everything on her resume was true. She tried to explain, but the mood had already shifted. Every question after that felt like a trap. They treated her like someone who didn't belong there. When the interview ended, she walked out feeling crushed and confused. She had been so excited about the opportunity. It was her dream job, and she had prepared for weeks. Now it felt like everything had fallen apart, and she didn't even understand why. She sat in her car, replaying the conversation in her head, trying to make sense of what just happened. Then her phone buzzed. It was a text from Carter, her brother-in-law. Hope the interview wasn't too rough. At first she thought it was a strange joke, but something about the message felt off. Carter worked at the same company. He had told her he would put in a good word for her. That's how she got the interview in the first place. But now, she began to doubt everything. She opened her email, searching for anything she might have missed. That's when she found it. An email from the company, forwarded by mistake. It mentioned concerns brought up by an internal reference. Someone who said she had lied and gave personal details about her. Her heart dropped. It had been Carter. He had gone behind her back, spread lies, and made sure she didn't get the job. She felt sick, angry, betrayed. She had trusted him. He was family. He smiled at her during family dinners and pretended to support her. But all along, he was working against her, just because he was scared she might do better than him. That moment changed everything for her. She wiped away her tears, took a deep breath, and made herself a promise. This wasn't the end. Carter was the kind of man who always smiled in front of people, but often had other thoughts behind that smile. He dressed well, spoke smoothly, and everyone in the family thought he was a great guy. He was married to her sister, and from the outside, he looked like the perfect husband. But she knew something wasn't right about him. Every time she spoke about her goals or shared her success, Carter would find a way to make her feel less important. He would say small things that sounded like jokes, but they always had a sharp edge. He had a good position at his company and liked showing off about it. He loved being the center of attention. When she mentioned she was job hunting, he quickly said he could help. He said he had contacts and could pass along her resume. At first, she felt grateful. It seemed like a kind offer. She thought maybe she had been wrong about him. But Carter wasn't trying to help. He was scared. He didn't want someone like her, smart, hardworking, and determined, joining his company. He feared she would shine too bright, and people might see she was better at the job than him. So, while pretending to support her, he told lies behind her back. He spoke to people at his workplace and said things that weren't true. He made her look dishonest and unqualified. He smiled to her face and stabbed her in the back at the same time. Carter was good at playing roles. At home, he acted like the caring husband and helpful brother-in-law. At work, he acted like a confident leader, but all of it was fake. He liked having control. He enjoyed making others feel unsure of themselves. He wasn't just afraid of losing power. He hated the idea of someone else doing better than him. She had always kept quiet around him, trying to avoid trouble. She didn't want to cause problems in the family, but deep down, she could feel how Carter looked down on her. He never praised her hard work. Instead, he acted like her dreams were too big, her goals too high, and when he had the chance to stop her from getting ahead, he took it without hesitation. Carter's world was built on image. He wanted to look successful, even if it meant hurting others. He didn't care who got stepped on as long as he stayed on top. What he didn't know was that the same woman he tried to bring down wasn't going to stay down for long. She had faced unfair people before, but this time, she knew who the enemy was, and she wouldn't forget. She couldn't stop thinking about how badly the interview had gone. It played over and over in her head. At first, she thought maybe she hadn't prepared enough. Maybe her answers were weak. Maybe she wasn't as ready as she believed. Doubt filled her mind. She started questioning her skills, her experience, even her confidence. She felt embarrassed. It wasn't just about missing out on the job. It was the way she was treated, like she had done something wrong. The disappointment was heavy, and it followed her everywhere. She stayed quiet around her family, trying not to show how upset she was. Then, something strange happened. A few days later, she got an email by mistake. It was from someone at the company where she had interviewed. It wasn't meant for her, but somehow it ended up in her inbox. She read it slowly. confused at first. Then her eyes stopped on one sentence. It mentioned a trusted inside source who had raised concerns about her honesty. Her stomach turned. She hadn't done anything wrong, so who would say such things? Not long after that, she ran into someone who worked at the company. They casually mentioned something odd, like they knew a rumor about her. It didn't make sense until she remembered Carter had connections there. That's when everything started clicking in her mind. She went back to the email, the way it was written, the type of information shared. It was all personal, things only someone close to her would know. Her heart sank. It had to be Carter. No one else had the chance to do this. No one else had a reason. It hurt more than she expected. She had trusted him, believed his words, and thought he had wanted the best for her. Now, she realized he had lied and smiled through it. The pain wasn't just about the lost job. It was about being betrayed by someone who was supposed to be family. She sat quietly, trying to process everything. The sadness slowly turned into anger, but along with it came clarity. She finally saw the truth, and she wasn't going to let it slide. She didn't know what she would do next, but she knew she wouldn't let him win. She didn't say anything to Carter right away. Even though she was hurt and angry, she stayed calm on the outside. She made a choice to keep quiet and act normal. Around him, she smiled, laughed, and spoke kindly, like she had no idea what he had done. It wasn't easy. Every time she looked at him, she remembered how he had lied and ruined her chance. But she knew if she wanted real payback, she had to be patient. At family gatherings, she watched him closely. He still acted proud and full of himself, talking about his job like he was the smartest person in the room. He bragged about meetings, deals, and how important he was at work. She listened, nodded, and pretended to be impressed. But inside, she was planning her next move. One evening, she was talking to an old classmate online. They were catching up when the topic of jobs came up. Her friend mentioned that a large company had just bought the firm where Carter worked. The new company was much bigger and was in the middle of making major changes. Her ears perked up when she heard that. She asked more questions and found out that the new company was looking for someone to lead a new team. Someone with experience, fresh ideas, and leadership skills. It was a top-level role, even higher than what Carter had. She became very interested, but didn't tell anyone, not even her sister. She did her own research late at night, reading job details, learning about the company, and thinking about how to apply. She found that the opening wasn't public yet. It was being shared quietly through network. That's why Carter hadn't heard about it. He was too busy showing off to notice what was really happening around him. She worked on her resume again, this time making it even stronger. She wrote a cover letter with care and made sure everything was perfect. She didn't send it right away. First, she asked a trusted contact at the company for advice. That person remembered her from years ago and offered to pass her information straight to the hiring director. All the while, she kept playing the same friendly role in front of Carter. She knew he thought he had won. He had no idea that the person he tried to stop was now one step ahead. She was ready to move forward, not just to prove herself, but to turn the tables completely. This time, she decided to try a new way. She didn't go through the usual steps, like filling out online forms or sending her application to a general email. Instead, she reached out to someone she remembered from the past, a manager she had worked with during a college internship. Back then, she had done great work and made a good impression. She hoped he would still remember her. She sent him a short, polite message, explaining she had heard about the new role. She didn't ask for special treatment, just a chance to talk. To her surprise, he replied the same day. He said he remembered how helpful and skilled she had been and would be happy to speak with her. They set up a time to meet. The day of the interview, she felt nervous, but ready. She knew she had what it took. She dressed sharp, arrived early, and carried herself with confidence. The manager welcomed her warmly. The conversation was friendly and smooth. Instead of only asking hard questions, he wanted to hear her ideas. She spoke clearly and shared her thoughts on how she would improve the team, handle problems, and support workers. He nodded often and looked impressed. When the meeting ended, he shook her hand and said it was one of the best talks he'd had in a while. She walked out feeling hopeful and proud. Still, she didn't tell anyone, not her parents, not her friends, not even her sister, and definitely not Carter. At home, everything looked normal. She acted like nothing exciting had happened. When Carter made comments about work or joked about her job search, she just smiled and changed the subject. She didn't want to give him any clues. She knew that sometimes the best way to win was to stay quiet until the right moment. She had learned from her mistake the first time. Now, she kept her plan to herself and waited. She believed in her skills and knew she had done well in the meeting. All she needed was a little patience. This time, she wasn't just hoping for a job. She was aiming for something bigger and smarter. A few weeks later, she got an email that made her heart race. It was from the manager she had spoken with. He thanked her for the great interview and said they wanted to bring her onto the team. She had been chosen for the job. Her hands shook as she read it again to make sure it was real. It felt like a dream. But then came the part that made it even better. The position was higher than she expected. She would be in charge of a new team, and the team would include people from Carter's area. That meant he would be reporting to her. She sat in silence for a moment, smiling to herself. The man who had tried to ruin her chances would now have to answer to her. It was almost too perfect. She didn't rush to tell anyone. She took her time, reading the offer, asking questions, and reviewing the details. The role came with more responsibilities, better pay, and room to grow. She felt proud of how far she had come. After thinking it over, she accepted. She signed the contract and saved the confirmation. Her start date was in 2 weeks. That gave her just enough time to plan how to break the news. She waited until the company sent out the announcement email about her hire and the new team set up. That same morning, she wrote a short message of her own. She kept it polite and professional. She said she was excited to join the company and help with the department changes. She also mentioned that she was looking forward to working with familiar faces, including Carter. She hit send. It didn't take long. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Messages poured in from people who had seen the update. A few congratulated her. Others were shocked. But the one that stood out was from Carter. He didn't say much. Just a few words, asking if it was true. She didn't reply. Later that day, she saw him at a family dinner. His smile looked forced, and he didn't say much. She stayed calm and cheerful, chatting with everyone else like nothing was different. He knew. And now, there was nothing he could do. Getting the job felt amazing. But knowing she had earned it honestly while he had tried to cheat her, that was the real reward. She didn't need to argue or fight. Her success said everything. On her first day, the office was full of quiet whispers and curious looks. People had heard about the new leader, but most didn't expect her. When she stepped into the building, heads turned. She walked in with her head high, dressed sharp, calm and ready. Some faces looked surprised. Others looked impressed. It didn't take long before the news spread. She was now the person in charge. The team she would guide had just gone through big changes, and everyone wanted to see how she would lead. The air felt different. Some workers smiled as she passed. A few came to introduce themselves politely. She greeted everyone with kindness, but stayed focused. Then she saw him. Carter stood near the back, stiff and quiet. His usual charm wasn't there. He looked unsure of what to say or do. He gave her a small nod and forced a smile, but she could tell he wasn't comfortable. The man who had once tried to stop her from being hired now had to follow her instructions. It was clear he was caught off guard. She didn't make a scene. She kept it simple. She greeted him the same as the others. No more, no less. He tried to speak, but his words came out awkward. He mumbled something about the new structure and quickly stepped aside. She let him walk away without saying much. That moment said enough. Throughout the day, she led meetings, reviewed plans, and spoke with other managers. She showed she was prepared and confident. Her ideas were sharp, and her tone was firm. She wasn't there to play games. Everyone could see she meant business. People around the office began to notice how different she was from Carter. She listened more, gave clear direction, and stayed respectful. In the past, Carter had ruled with pride, but now, someone else held the power. Someone who had earned it with honesty and hard work. By the end of the day, her place was clear. She had taken the seat at the top, and no one questioned it, especially not Carter. He knew now that things had changed. She had risen, and she wasn't looking back. She didn't remove him from the team right away. That would have been too easy. Instead, she gave him a chance to do his job properly, something he had avoided for a long time. She started paying close attention to his work. Every assignment he turned in was reviewed carefully. She didn't miss a single detail. If something was unclear or unfinished, she sent it back for corrections. He wasn't used to this kind of supervision. Before, He had done whatever he wanted with little to no follow-up. He skipped steps, rushed reports, and made excuses. Now, all of that had changed. She asked for updates often. She expected clear answers. She gave him tasks with firm dates, and she expected them to be done on time. No more delays or shortcuts. The pressure started to show. His replies were slower. His writing had more mistakes. When he spoke during team discussions, he stumbled and repeated himself. People in the room noticed. Some looked confused. Others tried to cover their reactions, but it was clear they were surprised. She didn't point out his mistakes in front of everyone. She didn't have to. His own actions showed the truth. The more he struggled, the more his co-workers began to question his abilities. They wondered how he had held his role for so long without being challenged. Now that someone was holding him accountable, his faults became obvious. As time passed, the team grew stronger, except for him. Everyone else seemed to improve. They met their goals, shared ideas, and supported one another. Meanwhile, he fell behind. His confidence faded. The smile he used to wear was gone. She stayed calm through it all. She didn't yell. She didn't argue. She simply expected him to do his job. No more, no less. That alone was enough to break his routine. He wasn't ready to be responsible. He wasn't prepared for someone who cared about quality. It became clear to the whole team who the weak link was, and it wasn't because she told them. It was because they saw it for themselves. She never had to raise her voice. She just let the facts speak. And as the days went on, the difference between them grew wider. One was rising, the other was falling. After many weeks of watching him fall behind, she quietly gathered proof. Every missed deadline, every poorly written file, every time he failed to follow instructions, she kept it all saved. She didn't rush. She stayed patient, collecting facts one by one. By the time she was ready, she had a thick file of records showing his lack of effort. She spoke to the company's human resources team. They reviewed everything she had gathered. The rules were clear, and the information she brought was solid. HR agreed it was time for a serious discussion. A formal review was scheduled. She decided to hold the meeting with the full group present. It was done by the book, professional and respectful, but firm. The whole staff was invited, including HR. When everyone arrived, she stood at the front, calm and steady. She started the meeting by going over team progress. Then, she shifted the focus. She explained that some roles were being adjusted based on recent results. Without naming anyone at first, she listed common problems they had been facing: delays, careless work, poor communication. Then she turned to Carter. She politely asked him to speak about his duties. He stood up, trying to sound confident, but his voice cracked. She let him talk, then calmly brought up the facts. One by one, she listed the times he had failed to meet expectations. Everything was backed up with dates and examples. The room went quiet. No one spoke. Carter stood frozen, his face pale. When she finished, she explained the next step. He would stay at the company, but in a lower position. His title would change, and so would his task. After the meeting, he followed her to her office. His voice was shaky. He asked her to give him another chance. He said he could improve. He said he didn't mean to cause trouble. She looked at him without anger. She told him, "I thought about this very carefully. I gave you every opportunity to show growth. I stayed fair, but you made your choices. You didn't think twice when you lied about me." His shoulders dropped. He didn't reply. The message was clear. Actions have consequences. He had tried to block her path, but she had taken the high road and let the truth come to light. Now, he had to face what he had done. Things started to get better quickly after the team changes. She felt more comfortable in her position. The group worked better together, shared new ideas, and finished projects faster. People respected her leadership and listened when she spoke. The atmosphere in the workplace became positive and focused. Everyone knew their roles, and they worked as a unit. She smiled more now. The stress and sadness from before were gone. She walked into the office each day with pride. It wasn't just about the title. It was about finally being seen for her true skills and hard work. She had earned her place, and she made sure others got the support they needed too. Meanwhile, Carter stayed quiet. He didn't say much in meeting. He avoided eye contact. His confidence had faded, and people noticed. Over time, he started missing days and seemed unhappy. Eventually, without telling many people, he requested to be moved to a different location. His request was approved, and soon his desk was empty. She didn't celebrate his exit. She didn't need to. It was enough to see that she had made it through without lowering herself to his level. She had stayed professional, even when he wasn't. Later, her sister found out what had really happened. At first, she didn't believe it, but after seeing messages, hearing others talk, and learning the full story, the truth couldn't be denied. Her sister was shocked and upset. She didn't know what to say. Things became cold between them. Calls stopped. Messages became short. Family events felt strange. Still, she didn't feel sorry. She had protected her future. She had chosen herself after being treated unfairly, and in the end, the truth had come out. She also allowed herself small moments of quiet victory, like drinking coffee from her boss lady mug, or casually mentioning her team's success in front of people who once doubted her. She didn't say anything mean, but the message was clear. She had risen above. Her journey wasn't just about getting back at someone. It was about rebuilding what had been broken. Her voice, her strength, her place in the world. Now she stood tall, not just as a manager, but as someone who had faced betrayal and come out stronger. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, but she also knew she could handle them, because this time, she wasn't scared. She was ready. Do you think she did the right thing by staying calm and letting the truth speak for itself? Or should she have called Carter out the moment she found out what he did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you enjoy stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new one.